Hello WCA, Mike Amore. Welcome to the week one update video. Throughout this year, I'm going to be showing you in these videos positions from your own games, and I'm going to create kind of little titles for them and put them in the blog so that by the time these 8 weeks are done, you will have written or looked at your own textbook about chess. And every week we'll pick up new ideas from the games that you playing yourself. These are not from famous games. This is your work. So I want to look at the first game between Ben and John, and there's a move that Ben played here that I need to talk about. With white, he played the move f3. Be very careful moving that f pawn early in the game as white or black. You have to be very, very careful. Normally, if you're going to move the f pawn on move 2, you move it 2 boxes. And this is called the King's Gambit. And the idea of this move is you're trying to knock black's center pawn out of the center. And then after you do, you can put your knight here on f3, developing a piece controlling the center even more. But you'll notice after the move f3, the problem is it doesn't attack black's center, and it doesn't allow the knight to develop. So, if John plays a move like bishop to c5, he played knight c6, which is also good. He's just, again, controlling the center with a piece. But a move like bishop c5 is a little bit scarier because you'll see that it opens this diagonal here. You guys see that line that I opened up for you? That diagonal is leading into into white's camp, and you can get into a lot of trouble. As a matter of fact, I had a student I found in the database who had this position as black and played really well. So white played c3, same as what Ben did, by the way. Knight c6, which doesn't allow d4 so comfortably. And white just kept pushing pawns, chasing the black pieces away. But the problem is the pawns don't go backwards. So black took once, pawn to b5. And I'm going to rush through this because I'm only showing you this to get to the following position. e5. You see how white's just moving all these pawns? The knight ends up on f5. Finally, a piece comes in the game. Here, this is the move I want you to stop the video for. It's black to play and basically win. And it's all because of this f-pawn. You see the move? Queen h4 check. Yeah, this is from another WCA game a long, long time ago. White's in big trouble because if you block the check, the knight's just going to take it. And you'll see that if you pick up the knight, the rook out down here can hang. So this is really, really bad. So what's the main thing to take away from this position or from this game is the early move with the f-pawn from white. Now let's take a look at it from the black side. Okay, same concept. I'll put a picture of this in the blog. In this position, this is just in reverse. We're looking at black side now. You see how this f-pawn has been moved? Not good. Same concept. You take the pawn with the knight. If the pawn takes back, you get hit with queen h5 check. Black is already lost here. If you block here, you can see that I'm going to take this pawn. And then on my next move, this is check. My next move, I'm going to take a rook. That's not a good idea. So after queen h5 check, you can try to move your king. But I don't know. Where's he going? There's only one legal move, correct? You guys see it? Yeah, it's king e7. And then the queen starts picking off pawns, and the king moves, and bishop check, and blech. I don't want to show you the rest. I'm going to have nightmares. What I do want you to remember is the early move of this f-pawn. It can be very, very dangerous. Now, it turns out in the work that you did on Sunday, there was somebody in the room who was afraid to move the f-pawn or get caught with their king in the middle, but it turns out it would have been a really good time to move the f-pawn. Let me show you the game and try to remember that chess is hard. So when you hear these rules, don't bring your queen out early. Well, that's not true, because sometimes the queen should come out early. Never move your f-pawn. That's not what I said. I said be careful moving your f-pawn. See how hard chess is? Let me show you another game. This is between Spencer and Leia. Okay, so Aren't you guys a little impressed at how quickly I set up these pieces? I mean, you got to be a little impressed, no? Okay. So Leia's knight is being attacked. So she played a good move. She played d6. She protected her knight. And in the position, Spencer took the knight. And here, I think Leia was afraid of having this queen take up here on d8 after she takes the bishop, because her king would be in the middle. But I want to connect these ideas about this f-pawn and the king being in the middle. So what she did in the game is she didn't take the piece back. She just moved her knight here to develop, lost another pawn. She managed to come back, but really her position is losing here. However, let's go back for a minute. When he takes, just take back, because if the queens come off the board and the king takes, look at that. I can even flip this board without you guys. Isn't that amazing how fast I do that? Look at this from the black side now. This is not bad for black at all. Yes, the king is in the middle of the board. Yes, the center pawn can be attacked, but this time the move pawn f6 is very, very good because there's no knight sacrifice. If you sacrifice the knight to play queen h5 check, you're going to forget that the king is on d8 and you don't have a queen anymore. It's a totally different position. But to Leia's credit, she realized her king would have been stuck in the middle. And we're taught, don't keep your king in the middle of the board. But the queens are off. Some of the pieces have been traded and the remaining white pieces are nowhere to be found. So black's position is perfectly fine here. If the knight attacked the pawn, I would just play pawn f6. Normally, I don't want a pawn on f6. I want a knight there. But this is a special circumstance. If you develop normally and attack my knight down here, that's when black has to be a little creative and they can play moves like c6. Do you know what that's for? That's to protect this king because he can hide here, or sometimes even the bishop can tuck himself back in, but normally the king would come here. If Spencer took that knight down here, Leia just takes back, and I kind of like black here. It would be two bishops versus two knights, two rooks on the board, but this is fine. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So in this position, it's a good time to move that f-pawn. Big difference, right? All right, let's take a look at another one. Okay, this we'll also look at from the black side. This is Mari playing black against Danny B with Danny has white. Here, Mari breaks one of the rules of chess. It's not like a rule that says you can't move the queen like a knight. That's a rule you can never break, correct? But in chess, you are allowed to move the same piece twice. See this knight on c6? Is she allowed to move this? Of course. But normally we tell the students, don't move the same minor piece twice until all of the minor pieces are in the game, unless you have a really good reason. So does Mari have a good reason to move the knight? She thought so. She played knight to b4. What's her idea? Well, she's connecting this knight with this bishop. And where is Danny getting attacked? Here on c2. What he should have done is just protect the pawn. And I think in his mind, he may have seen rook to c1, but he didn't want to do it because he's going to have to give up a rook. But he may have forgotten that, yeah, he's giving up a rook. But let's switch the board again. Ah, come on, how good am I? Amazing. You switch the board, and you realize that if black goes for this trade, say they take with the knight first, you just pick off the knight, take, take. And this is really good for white because you got two minor pieces for a rook and a pawn. Try to remember the concept that two minor pieces for a rook and a pawn is usually very, very good in the opening stage of the game. And that's exactly where we are. So after knight to b4, Danny should have just played rook to c1. Instead, he played bishop d3. So in his mind, he can get rid of that attack by simply blocking one of the pieces. But that loses a pawn. And Mari didn't go for it. She played pawn to e6 to develop. But here she really should just go for the trade and win a pawn. Me, I would probably take with the knight first, check, pawn takes, and then bishop takes. And if you look at this position, black is up a pawn, and this is a real annoying bishop. It's going to take a while for white to castle. So Mari probably should have grabbed that, okay? But real instructive, really instructive. The games were very, very good this week. Okay, this looks like a, some normal position in a king pawn opening. This is what Foti playing white against James playing black. Meanwhile, Foti's like the youngest kid in the class. I think he was third grade. His notation looks like it's being printed from a computer. It's absolutely incredible notation. My handwriting is nowhere near as good as this kid's handwriting. Anyway, here, James, my friend James, did something, I call it like the runaway knight in these positions. So with black to play, never forget the color of your uniform. You're playing black. You need to develop your pieces. Play a move like d6 here. Just push a pawn to d6. Protect your e-pawn. Open up your bishop. Continue to get the rest of the pieces in the game. But here, James played the move knight to g4. And, I think he loves to attack, so I know why he did it. He's thinking maybe he can get his queen out here, and then maybe take a pawn. But, to do that, you're going to have to get this knight to move and then somehow keep this knight protected and blah, 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 and not allow this knight into the center. So his idea is good, but the timing needs to be a little bit later. Again, go back. He's playing black. You need to catch up in development. Play a move like d6, bring this light square bishop into the game, and then play a more exciting middle game. When you move the knight to g4, it doesn't really have a follow-up. In the game, Foti just attacked the queen, which was, looked like a really good move, but he could win a pawn here. We can just play h3, and then when you move your knight back, I guess you're going to move your knight back, we could just take the knight, and when you take back, pick off a pawn. And that looks like a pretty clean pawn. There's not much that black has for that. So just a little caution to James in the future. Watch moving those knights. This is for all of you. I mean, these are really instructive moves. If you're going to move a knight, again, without developing this bishop, remember, Mari did the same thing. Make sure you have a follow-up to that move. If you're moving it out here and you're just going to get attacked to go back, you're losing a lot of time, right? Because now it's h3 and it's white's move. Back here, it's black's move. But after this, isn't that funny? It's white's move. So this knight just lost 2 tempos. I hope that's instructive. Okay, here's one between Aris and Hannah. And this is the concept of playing the in-between move. So if you look at the material, black has an extra minor piece. There's 2 for black and only 1 for white. The pawns, I think, what is white up a pawn? Yeah, but they're down a piece. So here, black plays, instead of moving their bishop, they played the move rook f to d8, and that was a little bit of a mistake. You guys see why? So what is the expected move? To move the queen to safety, which is what happened in the game. However, in between move, instead of moving the queen, take the bishop, because that attacks the queen. If you take the white queen, then you just take the queen here, and it's white that actually won their piece back here. You guys see that? So let's go back. It's black's move. They should probably deal with this bishop, maybe put it on e6 and have a good game. But they played, I mean, I like the idea, rook f to d8, but the in-between move. Watch the tactics. Pawn takes g4. Okay? Let's look at one more. Okay, let's finish up with this game between Jake, who's a new WCA student. I used to teach Jake at a school in Mamaroneck. I'm really happy that he joined us on Sundays in Harrison. So Jake has white, actually, and Costa has the black pieces. And Jake lost his queen to a knight fork earlier. So it's clear that you know, there's some extra material on the black side, but the white pieces are really active, and you'll see that this pin here is really nasty because that knight on f6 is being attacked 3 times. You know, if you have a computer running, or if you ask a master sometimes about these positions, they'll tell you, look, there's nothing you can do about white taking on this square. They have more power than you do. So sometimes if they're going to do it anyway, it doesn't hurt to kind of force the knight to take, because if it takes, you take back with the pawn. And I think Costa was afraid of the following line, and he had a good reason to be nervous about this. Bishop takes, hitting the queen goes to d7. I think he didn't like this idea of rook f5 with checkmate in 1 move coming. You guys see it? Yeah, rook here is like, woof, bad news. You don't want to give up your queen for the rook. But what can you do? Where are you being attacked? So just stop the attack. So pause the video, and hopefully you found the move h6. And black keeps a really, really strong advantage here. Let's go back. So here's our position. So just recommending kicking the knight and carrying on, right? In the game, Costa moved the queen away from the pin. I like his idea. And here, Jake missed the chance to win a free piece. He ended up taking the knight, g takes, and he took with the rook. Okay, so he's pretty much in trouble here. But let's go back just for one move here after queen e8. Is there another way to take the knight? Yeah, with the bishop. Because if you take the knight with the bishop, oh, I'm sorry, not there. Let's go back to here. If you take this with the bishop, it's a free piece. You guys see why you can't take back. You know, you're going to have to find the move c6. Oops, sorry. You're going to have to find the move c6 to kick the knight away. Because what happens if you take the bishop right now? You should be able to see that. The knight's going to take check, winning the queen. If you play c6, kicking the knight out of the way, then we just take this over here. Now you can take, but white ended up winning a piece. Let me show you what happened in the game. So the knight took, real exciting game. Pawn took, he took with the rook, h6 kicking the bishop, and in this position, Jake took with the rook. Go back. What happens if he takes with the bishop? All of a sudden, this game is very, very close to equal, because now this rook is going to slide into the game. There's going to be an enormous amount of pressure on f7, and this rook up here is a goner at some point, even though I'm not so sure white would be in a hurry to take that rook, because this bishop is a real monster. But I'll tell you, if you put this position on a computer, it likes black, but not by a whole lot. Okay? Very instructive games. I'll see you guys next week.